Okay, I think we should get started. Thanks for joining us today for this rather unique webinar that we have for you today. My name is Michael Petruccelli. I'm the Channel Sales Manager for NICE CXOne. A little bit of a humble brag. NICE CXOne is the world's leading cloud contact center as a service platform, and end of humble brag, but we'll be talking about CXOne a little bit as we progress. But we really hope you've received your pizza, and we also hope that you've received your Bucketies beer, which is a bit special. So hopefully you've already taken a couple of sips of that today. But we've got some great speakers for you today. I'll introduce them as we progress, but Nick McDonald from Bucketies Brewing is on the line. We have Rusty Jensen, who is our VP of Revenue at NICE CXOne, and we have Gordon Pettigrew as well, who's a Sales Director at Generation-e. So the proceedings today, we do have a prize for you, ladies and gentlemen. We have a special Jabra headset to the person who asks the most questions. So that is an interesting KPI, and most people on this call know what a KPI is, but yeah, if you ask the most questions, you'll get a Jabra headset. But it's really my great pleasure on behalf of both NICE and Generation-e to have you here and to talk about how we transform your customer journey. Now, one of my colleagues says that customer experience excellence is a never-ending race with an ever-changing target. Now, that's a little bit daunting, really, when you think about it, because when you're on a journey, you know where the end is normally, but the only real constant in life is change. And we've experienced that certainly over the last 20 odd months with the pandemic. We pretty much had to drop everything and change our journey, if you like. And today's webinar hopefully will give you some insights into putting the customer experience and understanding their journey at the heart of everything that we do. And we'll talk about some tools that help you achieve CX excellence. Now, speaking of CX excellence, CX is not just about contact centers. Every business in every part of the world is on a pursuit of CX excellence. And what attracted us to a very special guest here today, Bucketies Brewing Company, wasn't just the beer, even though that is a very nice thing to have. It was actually their laser-like focus on being unique, but also their focus on customer experience. So Bucketies Brewing is not a contact center. It's a company that is dead focused on their customers. So without further ado, it's my great pleasure to introduce the co-founder of Bucketies Brewing Company, Nick McDonald. Nick, over to you.
Awesome. Thanks, Michael. And thanks everyone for tuning in. So yeah, it probably seems a little bit weird getting some input from a brewery owner when we're talking about software and call centers and all this kind of thing. The connection here though is that I'm actually really good mates with Gordon, and he's been down to our brewery many times and sampled our beers, and he came to me with this idea of like, you guys do such a great job in the brewery at presenting customer experience. How about we try and tie that together with your guys' business, and talk a little bit about why the whole customer experience and the way that people feel in the venue is so important. Taste some of our delicious beers, and yeah, have a little bit of fun while doing it. So let me go to the next slide, which I don't know how to do. Button somewhere. I'm going to require some input here from the technical department. There's no button on my screen to be able to flick to the next slide.
Ruwan, can you assist?
Click your mouse there, Nick.
All right, cool. All right, so this is the front of the brewery. We opened in February, and this is a very typical Friday and Saturday night. We'll have a line of people out the door. And this isn't like a cool kids 18-year-old party line. These are all mature age hunters like most of us here. And there's not too many people that are over the age of 35 that are going to want to wait in line too much. But we're able to capture the imagination of the local community. And yeah, they often wait in line for sometimes up to half an hour to an hour to get in. And the reason that I think that they want to come in so much is because we care so much about the way that you feel when you come in. So if we just flick to the next slide there. All right, so it's about the way that you feel, right? So when you come into the brewery, it's very, very important for us to make you feel at home, make you feel welcome, and have a really good time. Like, it's a really immersive experience. Like this image here that you can see, that's from inside the brewery. We have dartboards that are free to use, and they're framed by a stainless steel. So all of our product is made on site, in-house. And while you're in there, you very much feel part of it. So part of the design of what we do is to get the brewery as close to the people as possible. So it's not just kind of like this factory that's out the back. It's all in there. So all of the breweries are often brewing while there are people in the brewery. You can smell the malts and all this kind of stuff coming through. So it's really cool. So next slide. All right, now if you've got your beers in front of you, hopefully you're having a little bit of a taste now. We do a whole bunch of different styles of beers. You've got 4 in front of you now, and hopefully one of those very attractive branded glasses. I'll talk you through just very briefly on the different styles of beer. The lager, which is the image that you see on the far left, that's by far our biggest seller. It's clean, crisp. It's probably your most mainstream beer. There's not a huge amount of hop characters going on. It's really malt driven. Tastes best cold. It's guaranteed fresh because we can only make so much of it, and it sells out pretty quickly. So yeah, it's kind of like that's our most approachable beer. You'd probably liken it to sort of like your Asahi style, like a Japanese style lager, a little bit dry. And then on the other side of the spectrum, we have the West Coast, which you'll have as well. That's a 7% West Coast IPA, really juicy, really fragrant. And it's kind of like, I like to call it like an end of the night beer, because you're only going to have a 7% beer when you're sitting down and your daily duties are complete. So in between there, you've got your XPA and your hazy and maybe a pale ale too. So as far as like the hop aroma and flavor and that kind of thing, it starts with the lager. It has really very little other than a little bit of bittering, and then all the way to the West Coast, which is like the very flavoursome full side of the spectrum, and then everything else is kind of like in between there. So yeah, we also do beer on nitro, but you've got to come into the brewery to get that, which you see in the middle there, which is the tap. All right, next slide, please. All right, now I touched on earlier about the whole customer experience, and that starts when you walk in. And this is actually my father-in-law. We coined him Old Man Buckety, and he's more or less the doorman, the security, and that kind of thing. So he comes in, as you come in, he's really warm, welcoming, and initially that feeling that people get when they walk in is one of being welcome. And people that come into the brewery, like, they are coming in a really positive frame of mind because they are wanting to have a good time. And the experience that I certainly had many times when I've gone to pubs or bars is that the security is like this roadblock that you have to overcome, and often they can ruin the night if they're a little bit too stern or sort of like obsessed with their own self-importance and that kind of stuff. So there's that first thing when you walk in, super important. Then you walk through and you got that cool room has a nice big window where you can see into the keg room, so it ties the whole manufacturing process all together, and you feel like you're really part of it. And the whole tap room has actually been made by hand. Apologies for not having a photo of that here, but the whole tap room has been made by hand. Myself, the brewer, we got a carpenter in for 3 months. We basically made all the tables, all the stools, and the bar top from milled timber from our property. So all these little touches make a big difference to the way that you feel when you're in the space. So next slide, please. We're also big on live music because beer and live music go really well together. So this is a very typical Saturday night. It's just 10 seconds of a whole bunch of random people going mental. If you just give that a little play, doesn't matter if there's no sound. You get a feel for it. So you imagine if you're in that crowd, you're drinking our beer, you're having a great time, you're forgetting about every other problem you have in your life, and you're just really immersed in the experience. So that's what is really, really important to us. And it goes really well. We now put on music sort of 3 or 4 nights a week, and it's not necessarily like a money-making exercise. It's just a lot of fun, and people respond to that because we're not like a profit driving brewery that's trying to take over the world. We generally want to grow, but we only want to grow if we're enjoying ourselves. So yeah. All right, next slide, please. All right, so we opened in February, and we were shut for longer than we were open. So it's kind of a cool story. So at 2 o'clock on the Saturday, we were told that we'd have to lock down at 6 o'clock, that everything was shut and the world was ending. But we were able to still do takeaways, and we were lucky enough to have a building that allowed drive-through access. So what we decided to do at 2 o'clock is like, all right, let's pull everything out. There's a pool table, there's a stage that you just saw, there's a whole bunch of tables, light fittings, all that sort of thing. So the team got everyone out as far as the punters and all that sort of thing at 6 o'clock. Then we pulled everything out and we opened the drive-through at 7 o'clock and welcomed our first customer. This is, as far as I'm aware, the first drive-through brewery where you're actually driving straight past the taps. We did takeaway pints, and we actually got a lot of attention. And the reason I bring this up is because it wasn't necessarily just about how do we sell more beer and stay afloat. How do we make this an experience for the punters that is going to be memorable, that they're going to enjoy? At this time in 6 months ago, everyone was feeling pretty uncertain, a bit scared, and maybe a little bit depressed about being locked down. So like, how do we deliver a really fun experience for our customers? This is how we did it. We didn't even get like guitarists and that kind of thing playing up on the brew deck. So you drive through and the music would be blaring and you'd be getting your pints. We had a takeaway food truck, so you get your tacos, and it was really cool. And we got a lot of attention to a point where we actually got some media attention from it, which you can see on the next slide. Yeah, so we were featured on Channel 7 News, Sydney Weekender, and even BBC World featured our drive-through brewery, and a really cool review in Broadsheet. And it was really common for people driving through, and they'd be like holding their phone and doing videos and that sort of stuff, and then they post it on Instagram and Facebook. So it really captured the imagination of our community. And I think that's because of the reason that we did it, which was, how do we make this as enjoyable as possible? And yeah, people responded. They could see that we were sort of in it for the right reasons. All right, and then the final slide, I believe. So the way that we think about the brewery is about the state of mind of our patrons. And this is our strap line. It's the back of the stage there. This is the couple of days before we put the stage back. It's a nice arty photo there. Then we put that front and center behind the bands that are playing, so that when you are there, you're enjoying yourself and you're reminded about where you are. You're in Bucketeers, you're in the brewery, you're having a good time, and staying in that state of mind where you're feeling good, you're connecting with your friends, you're listening to music, and you're sort of forgetting about all the other troubles in the world, because that's what beer does. I think it's a really good positive story, because after a few beers, you're generally better friends with the people that you're with, and the barriers come down and the animosity drops, in my experience anyway. And yeah, it's a good place to be when people listen to music, hanging out with their friends and having a few beers. So I'm really proud to be delivering that experience for our customers.
Great, thanks, Nick. Really appreciate
Awesome.
that.
Thank you.
Just a reminder to everyone listening in, please go ahead and ask a question in the QA window. We'd really appreciate that. There is one question here before we go on to Rusty. What's the most popular beer served at Bucketeers?
Well, the most popular beer is La Lager, absolutely. But that's kind of because it's a gateway craft beer, so I don't really count that. The most popular beer is with the beer nerds, those that like stick their nose in the glass and really talk about all of the different elements. That'd be the West Coast. So it's my favorite too, the West Coast. It's strong, but it's worth it.
That's awesome. I can't wait to come to Bucketeers Brewing Company and sample a beer. But thanks, Nick. Really appreciate that. Please stay with us, because there might be a few questions towards the end, and we'll take some more questions obviously throughout and at the end. But from Nick, who talks about obviously how his business had to, dare I say, the word pivot at the start of over this lockdown stage, and done it quite successfully. It's now time to talk about how to transform your customer journey. And it's my great pleasure to introduce my colleague, who actually is from Salt Lake City, but we find him in Panama today, working while he's on vacation. Unfortunately, Rusty, we couldn't send you some Buckety's beer because Jimmy doesn't bring all the way to Panama. So, so unfortunately, we'll buy you a beer hopefully in the future when you come to Australia. But it's my great pleasure now to introduce our VP of Revenue for NICE CXOne, Rusty Jensen. Rusty, over to you, and thanks for joining us.
Thank you, and it's great to be here. And you know, as you said, my name is Rusty Jensen. I've been at NICE for 12 years, and so I've kind of been in the customer service and contact center game for a long time, and I love it. And this is something I really get passionate about. And it's actually great listening to Nick and hearing about what Buckety's is doing to create a fantastic customer experience for their customers, because that's what we all do. And that's what our goal is to create this great experience for our customers as they kind of go on their journey and interacting with our company. And it's so much more than just the product or just the thing that you're delivering. It's the whole experience. And I think there's so many things we can learn from it. I think it's fantastic. So I love kind of drawing those parallels. And as I get to this presentation, maybe we can reference a couple of them, but I'm excited to share some things with you. We have some exciting things going on at NICE and a really great vision for what's going on in the customer service market. And we're excited to be able to help you. So we'll jump into there. So let's go ahead and get into the presentation. If you want to go ahead and move the slide forward for me, everyone. So let's talk about what a customer journey roadmap looks like. So typically, if I'm a customer and I'm interacting in the contact center, what I'm looking at and what I'm dealing with is first, once I encounter a problem, the first thing I'm typically going to do is search for answers. So I might go online. So my journey really starts as soon as I encounter any specific issue I have that I may need help with. And it usually starts when I encounter the issue, and then I go to the website or I go online to search for answers. And then a customer will typically contact a support department or group once they figure they can't solve the problem themselves. So once they go to Google, they can't solve the problem, they'll contact customer support. And then maybe they're given some options for self-service as they get in and call a company. They'll be put into queue, waiting on hold. Then they'll speak to a customer service agent who will resolve issues. And then once that's solved, maybe they'll take a survey and provide some feedback into how their customer experience was. And then typically contact center leadership on the back end will review those results of the surveys and the interactions, and will make change happen in the contact center. That's really kind of that journey. And as we go to the next slide, customer experiences and consumer expectations are changing very rapidly. So what our consumers are expecting of us in our customer experience is different now than it's ever been. So if you go ahead and build out the slide. So here are some of the expectations that our contact center patrons have. So first, when they have a needs event, so when they want to buy something, or they need help with something, or they need to check an order status, or they want to schedule an interaction with our company, they have a series of expectations. First, they expect that any problem they have that's remotely related to the product we have, that we can address it and solve it. The second expectation is that they can contact and communicate with the company in the way that they want to through their own preferred channel. If that's, and when we say channel, communication channel, voice chat, email, whether it be SMS, messaging apps, WhatsApp, something like that. And when they engage with a company, they also expect that if they're going to have a self-service option, so if they want to check a payment, check an order status, if they want to have self-service, that it's a very intelligent self-service option. And then once they get connected to an agent, they expect that they can effortlessly move between channels. So why wouldn't I be able to talk to a company and be able to talk to them at the same time and be able to send them a picture of what I'm looking at and say, hey, this is the problem I'm having with my phone, let me send you a screenshot, or be able to text or chat at the same time as they're talking. So they want to be able to do that. And they also want that experience to be personal and unique. So when they call the company, that they're recognized, they feel like that they're valued, that somebody knows who they are, and that their experience is more custom. And these are some expectations that our customers have today as we're getting into this world of digital transformation. So in looking at this at the next slide, we'll talk about it a little bit more. And one of the issues that we have for contact centers typically that we're engaging with and working with is that these next generation customers who want choice and flexibility and to be able to communicate on multiple channels and to be able to have great self-service options that can really just solve problems quickly, when they're looking for the Bucketies experience, when they call your contact center, it's difficult because a lot of contact centers have what we call first generation CX systems. So maybe a combination of on-premise and maybe a mixture of cloud. Most companies do, they have a mix. You might even buy a cloud technology that is a mix. But it's these technologies that have limited choices for digital interaction and a kind of an incomplete digital experience. They don't really have a seamless flow between self-service and human interactions. It's kind of a difficult journey. So you're coming in and you have this self-service experience, or you have this experience on the website where you're engaging with content. And then when you get to an agent, it's like a brand new experience. It's kind of disjointed. And it's also generic. You know, we'll contact it for customer service and we kind of have a generic experience. And that's what a lot of our customers are experiencing. And it's because there's limitations in technology. So in kind of moving through this presentation, let's go to the next slide. What we're trying to accomplish here at NICE is we're trying to help bring the best technology and the best practices and the right experience to the table to really help build a bridge between consumers and organizations. So these expectations that consumers have, these needs events, and they're wanting to interact with a company and kind of have that Bucketies experience. NICE CXOne is trying to bring the technology to market to help you to do that and to kind of build the bridge. So I want to walk through a couple of scenarios with you that I think can help, you know, solidify this thought process in our minds as we do it. So let's go ahead to the next slide. And let's look at a specific scenario. So as I go through this, Ron, if you can just build this slide out. But if somebody wants to call a contact center, this is the kind of experience we're typically seeing. So let's say that you receive a bill, and on that bill is some charges for your cell phone that you weren't expecting. So there's some administrative fees, there's something on some charges that you're receiving that just you're not expecting, you don't know what they are. So this is the kind of experience that a lot of people have when they're trying to interact with the contact center. Well, the first thing is they're going to go online and say, okay, what is this administrative fee? Searching it, looking for it, they can't figure it out. They're not sure what it is or why it's on their bill. So then they make a decision to call because they feel that they have to call. They feel like for them to get a solution to be able to solve the problem, if I can't figure it out online, I need to make a call. So they pick up and make a call. And the first thing they hear is a few menu options. Please press 1 for sales, press 2 for support, press 3 if you would like to order a new TV, whatever it might be. So they have these options, they decide they want to talk to customer experience, and now they're waiting on hold. And your expected hold time is 45 minutes, but your business is valued, right? So we have this experience, we're trying to get in there, we're waiting on hold, you know, you're kind of watching your phone, you're making sure that, hey, I want to make sure I'm still connected, that nobody's answered. And then finally somebody answers the phone, and when they answer, you hear this human voice, and you're like, fantastic, great, I want to talk to you. And then the agent who gets on the phone has to ask all the same kinds of questions that the system asks them. You know, verify your date of birth, verify you have to go through all this verification and authentication. So we go through that process. And then finally, when we get it done, we say, great, thank you. We're talking now. Excellent. So I have a question about this fee, okay, which is this administrative fee on my bill. I just need to know what this fee is. And the agent says, I'm sorry, I have to transfer you to our billing department in order for you to be able to solve that problem. Because the contact got routed to somebody that can't manage the billing questions. So they get put on hold, they get transferred. And then while they're waiting on hold for that transfer, the call drops, right? And this is something that happens. I mean, I think this is probably an experience that all of us have had. And of course, in your contact centers, your groups, I'm sure it's not fully this way, but it happens. And this is kind of this experience that we get. And it's definitely not that Bucketies experience we want, but it's an experience they get. So once they get a question to be able to answer a survey, so would you like to answer a survey? How did that go? It's just not a good experience, and it can throw someone off completely. And maybe this just happens rarely with a few customers, but it can throw them off completely in terms of how they feel about our company and our customer service group and the experience we're providing. So as we go through a couple of slides, we'll talk about why some of this is happening and then what we can kind of do to solve the problem. So if we want to kind of jump in here, so it's very frustrating. So here's what's really happening, and this is why this is happening. So any contact center, we really got to do 4 things. We've got to route contacts, schedule and train agents, so make sure that they're there to receive calls and chats and emails, and make sure that they're trained and they know what to do and how to interact. And then we have to detect sentiment. So we survey customers, or we're detecting sentiment. Okay, what's going on? How well did that experience go? And then we have to use that information to make change. So we'll analyze, how are the calls routed? How are the agents scheduled? Do you have the right people? Are they trained right? Are they saying the right things? What do the customers think? And we use that information to make change happen in the contact center. But what makes it difficult is there's too many systems. These first generation contact center systems, you could have, and in my experience, and I'm not sure what everybody has on the phone, but you'll have 4, 6, sometimes 8 systems to do those things: routing contacts, scheduling agents, training them, customer sentiment, and then reporting and tools to make change. And when it's all these different systems, you have different systems for call routing, different systems for scheduling, for QA, for everything, it becomes overwhelming. And it's like trying to pound 6 square pegs into round holes. It's very messy. And so when you're trying to get everything to work together, in the next slide, you can kind of just empathize with an agent. So contact center agents, we'll go behind them and kind of work with them and look at all the systems and the navigation. And sometimes it looks like this. Sometimes it's sticky notes everywhere and lots of different things on their screen. And it's just very difficult for them to kind of navigate everything, get up to speed, know what to do. And then, by the way, so impressive when you're watching a contact center agent that's good at it. They can just move through their screens like you've never seen. But what do we really expect? Like, can we really give that Buckety's state of mind and experience? It's difficult. So at NICE, what we've been doing for the last many years, for the last 3 or 4 years, we've been integrating all of our systems to provide a unified suite that can help you manage the entire customer experience process and use it as a bold differentiator for you. And we want to show you, or at least just talk about some of those pieces to kind of help you out. So first of all, when we talk about the customer experience, I love how Nick was talking about it. So great, because it's even before you get in the door, before you come in the door, this is the kind of experience we want to deliver. And what's interesting, when you think about a customer journey, we think often about the customer experience starting when they contact the contact center. So when they actually place a call or they start interacting. But that's actually only 19% of consumers. So only 19% of consumers will engage and call the contact center or try to chat with an agent prior to getting into the contact center. 81% start with a digital first entry point, meaning they'll go to a website, go to search engines, go to YouTube. They'll look for information to solve their problem before they engage in a contact center. And then they're offered things like self-service options. Once they decide to contact an agent, they'll be offered self-service options, and then they'll be routed into an agent. So the first thing that we want to do at NICE is to help control the whole experience for both groups, for the group that goes right to the agent and for the group that goes to a website looking for problems or looking for solutions to problems, and then giving them self-service options before they even choose to get to an agent. So we want to try to track that. And then very importantly, we want to collect that information while they're on the website and use it to empower the agent. So we don't want to focus just on a traditional flow, which is when a consumer decides to contact an agent. We want to try to manage the entire process. So if you go to the next slide, the intention here is to really create hyper-personalized connections. If we can track what consumers are searching for, what they're looking at on your website, and we can offer them self-service options early on before they even choose to engage the contact center, and then once they do engage the contact center, give that context to an agent in an easy way for them to interact. That's what we're trying to do to create a much more personalized interaction. So the agents know who they're working with and what's going on. So let me give you an example of this. So we'll go to this slide. Let me give you an example of this kind of an interaction. So here's a second scenario, and this is what it's like to be working with NICE. And this is kind of the Bucketies experience, I would say. So we'll kind of build this out. So first of all, when this would be an ideal situation. Let's say you bought a new refrigerator and the ice maker's not working. So the ice maker's not working. I can't get the ice to function. I can't figure out why my ice maker is not working inside of the refrigerator. So the first thing that would happen is somebody would Google, but this time they have success. So I have this new refrigerator. I buy it. I go to Google, and suddenly I find the manufacturer's website and lots of information. And I Google about the ice maker not working, and I find specific details. And then while I'm on that website, I then see a chat bot that knows how to communicate with me in a conversational manner. So the chat bot pops up and says, hey, what can I help you with? Well, I have some issue with my ice maker, and I need to see if I can get some support and help. Absolutely, let me navigate you to that web page. Takes them to the web page, interacts with them, communicates with them. When I ask questions, it understands what I'm asking and is giving me actually relevant answers. And it's doing it at a time when I care about customer self-service. So let's say I make a ton of progress. Yes, it's working. It seems like I understand what's going on. I make progress, but the ice maker is still not working. So I want to talk to an agent. So I ask the bot, can I talk to a technician? Bot says, absolutely. Technicians are currently busy. We'll call you in 5 minutes. Can you type in your phone number? Sure. Put in your phone number. 5 minutes later, a technician calls me and says, hey, I know you've been looking for, you've had an issue with your 500 series ice maker. And it looks like you went through a bunch of troubleshooting steps as you were working on our website. How can I help you? Let's talk about it. And I can say, yeah, I think it's actually a problem with the power switch that I'm having. That's what it looks like. That's what it seems like, because of what's going on. And then the agent can say, yeah, let me validate that. Let me validate that. Let's go through a couple of steps. If it doesn't work, I'll overnight you a new part and we'll take care of you. And then as they get into it, they start interacting. The customer is able to take a picture of what's going on, send it to the agent. The agent can see the picture. They can chat. They can share information, and they can solve that problem with multiple channels. So through that interaction, imagine the response to that survey. You know, the part shipped overnight, and then the next day, the agent, the customer will get a text message survey and say, yes, that was fantastic through SMS. That's an awesome experience. And so being able to provide those options and provide that kind of great customer experience, that's kind of how we take the experience from a rigid call flow, which would be a regular bar, to the Bucketies experience, where it's a totally different level. And so technologically, that's what we want to do, is to help to give you what you need to be able to create an experience like that. So we go to the next slide. So this kind of thing that I'm describing, this customer experience, is very real. And we want to, from a NICE perspective, we want to help complete this customer interaction journey, which we call CXI, by providing great digital entry points, by helping to orchestrate the entire journey of what a customer is going to experience in the systems, and then provide the right kind of context. As they're in this customer journey, we want to provide great, smart self-service options that truly can solve problems and interact with people. And then once calls and contacts do get to agents, we make sure those agents are prepared. We're pulling up the information in their systems, in their CRM systems. We are providing context that was collected from the website. We're giving them the information that they need. And then we're also getting the agents invested in understanding their metrics, their KPIs, what they should be doing and how they should be doing it, and then helping with performance improvement. So our unified technology, which is one product, not 6, is designed to try to help you manage this entire process. And we can always start piece by piece, you know, with whatever makes sense for you. Whatever's the biggest pain point now, we can just go piece by piece. But at the end of the day, this unified suite, if we can get to it over the next couple of years, and we can get you to a full transformation, that's when you can really make a difference for your consumers in the market. Let's go ahead and start. So at the end of the day, we want to be able to provide, you know, a couple of highlights. We want your consumers to really have that Bucketies experience, that they can communicate with you as a vendor like they would with a friend, They can contact you, they can interact with you, they can communicate with your company and have a solution that is in the way they want to communicate, whether it's through Facebook Messenger or SMS or calls. We can communicate with any of these channels, and we want to make sure that those channels are available and that they have the ability to communicate with you in the way that they want to. And we really feel this is where the market is moving. So if you go to the next slide, at NICE CXOne, we've enabled from a contact routing and a communication standpoint over 36 different channels that we support, so that we can communicate with them in any way you want. You're not going to use 36 channels, we get that, but we want you to be able to offer these options to customers in a way that's just easy for agents. The chat looks the same as the SMS, it looks the same as the WhatsApp, it looks the same as the Facebook Messenger. You just input it. You don't really even have to train your agents. They just use the new system that's in front of them in a seamless way, and then integrate everything else in the suite behind it. So that's really kind of the vision of what we wanted to cover with you today, to kind of give you some perspective on NICE CXOne and what we're doing in the market. Okay. So as a last couple of points, and I think some points that are understanding is are we good at this? Because that's going to be the question: is are you good at doing this? Are you good at providing this technology? Can you actually help us get to this vision that you've painted? And if you look at any of the industry analysts, they'll tell you that we can. That technologically, we absolutely can. That both from a omni-channel routing standpoint on the left, we're the best provider in the market. Right alongside us and Genesis, we do a fantastic job, both of us in that market. When it comes to scheduling agents and QA and screen recording and performance management, NICE kind of stands alone in the market. And so our goal, as we go to the next slide, is to be able to deliver the kinds of results that we've seen from lots of these different places. So it's not just these industry analysts that tell you that we're great. If you go to the next slide, we want to provide an experience and a set of results that actually make an impact for you and for your company, like we have with Vera Bradley, being able to deflect calls by 7%. So increase their call deflection rate by 7%, but also increase the efficiency of agents by moving to a concurrent model where they're communicating through multiple channels, but then also improving the customer experience metrics at the same time. The contact center is running better, the customer experience is better, it's more personalized, and these are the kind of results that we want to deliver. So what we would want to ask you is for the opportunity for us to be able to prove ourselves and to partner with you and to talk about how we can help you get you where you want to be. And at the end of the day, analyst opinions are great, and some of the results we've had with other customers are great, but it's your opinion and your results that matter to us. So we have the ability, and we've just recently gotten to a point over the last couple of years where we can really change customer experience. We can really affect this change. We've got the technology now. We have the resources and the expertise now to help you to do this. So what we'd ask is that you take the time, to spend some time with us, connect with us, learn about what we can do. Let us help you transform this customer experience, because I think it's time for the future of customer experience to come into play now. And that's what we want to do here at NICE. Okay. So that's what we've got for you.
Great stuff, Rusty. Thank you very much for that. We hope you got some great insights there. We might actually go to some questions, Rusty, while you're fresh and you've just spoken. I think it'll be more relevant. Anthony Brown, our Director of Solutions, has answered a couple of questions, but I'll just ask for the group as well. What is the basis of the stats that you referred to? Is this supported by research? Anthony's said to Titus, who asked the question, that the stats on the customer seeking versus the escalating to help come from a Harvard study. So it is supported by some serious research. Titus, I hope that answered your question. Stuart asked, does the chatbot identify itself as a chatbot, asking for best practice? And Anthony said that, yes, never masquerade as a real human when you're not. Yeah, so that's thanks for that.
Sure.
Yeah, any thoughts on that, Rusty?
No, I completely agree.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's important for people to understand that they're interacting with a chatbot. I think it can identify itself as an AI, which is very interesting for people to want to engage. But yeah, don't masquerade as a person, because it's not as good as a person. You know, it's not going to interact like a person does. But you know, it's what it really is. It's kind of, if you think of a traditional IVR, it's kind of like a robot. You know, it's not. You can't talk to it. This is more like C3PO. You know, you can talk to them, but you know, you can get irritating at times. You may need to move on to a person. But yes, yeah, don't pretend like it's a person.
Yeah, fair enough. There's a question here from Rod Schwarzkopf. Is there an example where you've helped guide and deal with first-gen customers using next-gen CX solutions to help encourage them to take that next step in customer/business interaction?
Yeah, there's many examples of customers where we've done that. You know, another one is a good example is like DSW Shoes, where their competition was Zappos, which is this company Zappos is like in textbooks talking about how great their customer experience is, and DSW had to be able to establish themselves as a competitive solution and a customer experience. And by getting in with them and actually taking some of their on-prem technology, they had an Avaya system with Verint in terms of their scheduling tools, and being able to say, okay, you have these tools, they actually had a couple of different CRMs, the ordering systems, as well as a front-end CRM. How do we create an ideal customer experience? And so we walked through that entire experience with them, went through and helped optimize all of their flows right from the website, bringing in artificial intelligence tools and AI, bringing in an optimization of their calling experience and their IVR once they do contact, integrations into their CRM. So agents, when they're able to connect, were able to have screens pulled up so they knew who was going on, what their orders were. They had order status fields provided, and we were able to collect and establish an NPS survey program so we could check net promoter scores, then help affect that whole change in that experience. And I think that was a great example of a full experience that's been done. And their impact is huge. And then, of course, COVID happened right after, and they had to move their contact centers all home, and their volume went up 70%, and it was managed seamlessly. So there's lots of examples of that. We'd love to be able to share and talk to you about them.
Thanks, Rusty. There's a question here from Ann Davis. What is the benefit of a chatbot rather than just going to the person in the first place?
Yeah, I think the benefit of the chatbot, you know, it can be a little bit, here's one of the things we found. When people go for customer service and they're trying to contact a contact center, and then when they call and then they're offered self-service options, the adoption rate is very low, because the customer has decided they want to contact an agent first. They've gotten to the point where they've made that decision. The great benefit of a chatbot is while they're on a website or they're trying to solve a problem by themselves, they're in a mental mode and focus on a self-service solution. And then if an AI bot can pop up and interact with them, but also help navigate them to different components in the website and bring solutions to the table, that makes a huge difference. Because it helps them to find things inside of the website or find solutions that they want to find by themselves before they choose to contact an agent. And so that's really a huge benefit of the bot, is to be able to do that for a customer before they're deciding that they actually want to talk to an agent. And of course, for your company, if your customer can solve that problem, if your consumer can solve that problem first, and then that's very exciting for them. They love that. They're like, oh, great, I solved my problem. I had this cool interaction with this AI thing. They like that. They have a better experience. And for you as a contact center, when you can divert some of the work, that helps you as you're growing, as we have, I know there's a lot of hiring challenges and things. If we can reduce that volume, it can really help contact centers to run more effectively and keep costs down.
It's a fine balance, isn't it? Thanks for that, Anne. Really appreciate that question. It's a fine line between, the balance between a human interaction versus a chatbot. Obviously, at the right time, you do need to go to a live person who can help you rather than a chatbot. But as you said, the efficiencies that a self-service interaction provides a business, the return on investment's actually quite high, and chatbots are pretty good these days. They're actually they're improving all the time.
They are cool.
Yeah, and just another question I got on a text. Someone was very shy. How can you balance the things that you do know, with the big brother stuff you also know about the customer around hyper personalization? That's another balance I suppose you've got to find, because you do have a lot of data on people.
You do, and there's actually maybe even more than you think, right? I think you all see that, and it is something that has to be balanced. I think a lot of it is just as we do collect a lot of information with what a customer is doing, I think it's important just to reveal the things that we know in a natural way, where it makes them feel like we don't know more than you think. Because NICE systems, when you deploy the whole stack, we know what they were looking at on the website. We know the options they had in the IVR. We see a history of interactions they've had in the past. We actually have technology that can identify people's personality profiles, so that their profile personality preference type in terms of how they interact with customer service. We catalog that, and then when we pull up all their customer information, we present as much as we can to an agent. It's a lot of scary, information, but it's fantastic to provide context to an agent, so they can very naturally consume the information, and then make the customer feel like that give them a very human connection and a very personalized interaction, without basically saying, oh, so I saw on page 3 you were looking at this and I was watching you. You don't have to give them that impression. So a lot of it's the art of how we train agents and coach them to make it feel very natural, so that it's more welcomed than causing concern.
Yeah, thanks for that. Hey, Titus has asked another question. So he's currently leading the Jabra headset competition. Good on you, Titus. You've made it easier for me, because there was a 3-way tie there for a little while. But are there any stats on chatbot resolutions rather than speaking to an agent? That's an interesting question.
That's a good question. I mean, typically, and I'd have to give you specific stats, but typically what we've seen is a deflection rate with chatbots and any kind of self-service application of 5 to 7% for a traditional system, and we've seen double that with AI systems. Because usually, if you can handle repetitive and simple tasks, normal chatbots can manage that. With AI bots and self-service applications, you can do repetitive and more complex solutions, and typically you'll see about double the diversion rate of all calls and contacts. So a really good IVR can do 5 to 7%. A really good AI can do 10 to 14 deflection.
Interesting. Hey, Rusty, thank you so much for that.
Yeah, especially when you put it in the spot. So.
Oh, no, please continue. Sorry for interrupting. What was that?
No, I just said, especially when you put it in the right spot. When you give the self-service option at a time when a customer is thinking that, and they're trying to solve the problem on their own. So.
Awesome. Thanks, Rusty. Really appreciate that. Thanks for your questions too. We thought it was good to answer those as we went. But hey, Titus, you're in the lead at the moment, but there's still 10 minutes to go. So let's see what happens. But it's my great pleasure now to introduce the sales director from our wonderful partner Generation-e, just to talk to you about Generation-e and how they can transform your business. Gordon Pettigrew, over to you.
Hey guys. First of all, thank you to everybody for coming today. A lot of great questions. The first thing that strikes me is actually we've got Nick on the northern beaches of Sydney and Rusty in Panama on the other side of the world, and how that was actually pretty seamless. So amazing technology that we use today. Incredible to be able to bring this team of people together to have these questions and get this information. Nick's actually my next door neighbour, so I can probably see him by wave over the road. Look, my thoughts are really, these themes have come up a few times, customer experience, but we're living in unprecedented times of change, right? Before the pandemic, there was this rapid pace of change. AI, automation, mobility, cloud services, IoT, everything was just taking off. The pandemic's obviously arrived and just accelerated that tenfold. It's disrupted business models, it's accelerated digital transformation. And what we're finding as an organization that helps government organizations and businesses, we're finding that people out there are having to reinvent themselves. As individuals, we're having to reinvent how we work. And the organizations that we work in are having to reinvent themselves. We've heard from Nick today about how he turned his brewery into a drive-through overnight. And as new generations of people entering the workforce and also becoming customers that we have to serve, they want new ways of interacting with us. They want new ways of dealing with us because they don't necessarily like and want those old ways. So to remain relevant, we have to constantly reinvent ourselves. And I guess that is what at Generation-e, we're an organization that has been helping users, end users, and organizations navigate the complexity of change. We'll just go next slide, please. Look, I don't want to talk too much about Generation-e. I think some of you already know about us, but essentially what we do is drive positive outcomes for our customers, largely based on Microsoft modern workplace technology and specifically Microsoft Teams, and integrating them with customer experience software like NICE. So we do have a huge amount of expertise and experience of deploying NICE CXOne solutions inside Microsoft Teams and alongside Microsoft Teams. And we're finding that's extremely popular in the market. So we can take people right from the consulting journey at the start, working out strategy, deployment, adoption and change management, and helping organizations with that whole end user journey as well. Lastly, from me, as an offer to all of you for attending today, I hope most of you got your pizza and your beers and you're enjoying your delicious Bucketees beers. But there is an open offer from us to run a workshop in partnership with NICE that will show you how you can transform your customer's experience. This involves really at a high level 3 stages: an assessment. We then show you the art of the possible, and then we help you build a plan as well. So I hope you guys enjoyed the webinar. Mike, I'll hand back to you for more Q&A, hopefully.
Brilliant, Gordon. Thank you for that. There aren't any specific questions yet, but hey, thanks to Anthony Brown, who's our Director of Solutions, for putting in some wonderful responses and actually getting into some further detail. But I think we can end it there, but I just want to thank everyone for your time today. We know your time is precious, and we know that you've done a lot of webinars over the last 2 years, so that makes it even more special for us. So thank you for joining. I'd really like to thank our presenters today: Nick McDonald from Bucketees Brewing Company, Rusty Jensen from NICE CXOne, all the way from Panama, which is awesome, and you too as well, Gordon and Anthony Brown. So with that, we'll end the webinar. Thank you for your time. Have a wonderful day ahead, and until next time, we'll see you again. Cheers. Thank you.